Good morning, Wall Street winners. It is Sunday, May the 4th, and as we come into the week of May 5th, tomorrow on Monday, there's a lot of earnings coming out, and I wanted to run through the earnings calendar real quick to give you a heads up. First of all, Wall Street favorite right now, Palantir, is the AI company that is really I'm going to say the golden child of Wall Street right now from an AI perspective, even more so than NVIDIA. I think it's kind of taken over for NVIDIA. They do different things, obviously, NVIDIA making more the chip side and Palantir delivering the AI. They do a lot of work for the Pentagon and the US government, so it'll be interesting to see whether they're affected there by any DOGE cuts. But this is a company that has been beating on expectations for the last 4 or 5 quarters and is expected to this quarter as well. So if it doesn't, this will certainly be a red flag to some of the AI story going forward. Then we've got On Semi. On does a lot of manufacturing of semiconductors for the automotive space. And based on where we are with the automotive tariffs, I'm expecting not so great news out of On Semi unless they've shifted and focused more on a different segment. Then we got Tuesday, AMD, which has always never been a fan favorite. It's just always been the bastard stepchild for whatever reason, to Intel. But now Intel has kind of fallen out of the sky and is no longer a favorite, really looking to sell off part of its business as it starts to refigure and get a new plan in. It's got a new CEO trying to come up with a new strategy to regain the momentum it once had in decades ago. Devon Energy, which is obviously oil and gas shares have not done very well. In fact, we saw on Friday with Exxon and Chevron that they'd even started to cut share buybacks, even though the shares are at attractive low levels for the company to buy them back, because they are hoarding cash in an effort to try to figure out what's going on with this drop in crude futures and crude prices going forward. Then we get to May 7th, Wednesday. And sorry, on the 6th, it's also my sister's birthday, so happy birthday, sis. On May 7th, we hear from Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell and the outcome of the FOMC meeting on the 6th and 7th. I think what we're going to hear at this meeting this update is that rates are still on hold because they just don't have the economic data in terms of the impact of tariffs yet, because they've been paused and in creating inflation, as well as unemployment and employment numbers. They're just continuing to kind of fall in line and not surprise to the upside or downside. So with no changes, there's no reason for rate changes other than President Trump pushing for them, which isn't something that Jerome Powell wants to accommodate, because I think it'll make him look like he's no longer independent of the executive branch, but is now being controlled by them. So yet another reason to keep rates unchanged. The original thinking going into this month was that there would be a potential rate decrease in June. But again, with tariffs now paused, the thinking has been pushed out to July, which could get pushed out even further to August and September. So we'll have to wait and see on Wednesday what comes out there. But in terms of earnings, we've got more oil and gas from Occidental Petroleum. This is one that Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, owns a great deal of, who, in his address to his shareholders yesterday, said that he was going to be stepping down from the CEO role at the end of this year, at the end of 2025. Uber comes out. This will be an interesting look into consumer spending, because this is definitely an expense that could be cut in terms of Uber Eats deliveries and requests for food. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on there with Uber. And then we've got ARM Holdings. So another semi tie-in. So ARM does a lot of the design of advanced chips for AI and has a lot of licensing deals. So expecting this to grow, because we've seen very positive results out of the likes of TSM or TSMC. And we're hearing capital spending is continuing at levels originally committed to in the early part of 2025 by the likes of Google and Meta and Amazon and Microsoft and others. So expecting good news out of ARM. And then Vistra. So Vistra is a utility out of Texas, and this stock is a fairly volatile stock for a utility. It kind of bounces in between the 100 and 125 range, and it doesn't pay as big a dividend as most utilities, but has positioned itself as a supplier of energy to data centers being built out in the US. So be interesting to see what the results are from VST on Wednesday. And then we get into Thursday, more energy, this one out of, Canada and the US. Synovus, I believe they're down in Houston, if I'm not mistaken, at this point, headquartered. They were originally out of Calgary in Alberta. Affirm Holdings, so this is a finance company, kind of a fintech company that finances purchases over a certain period of months. So when you're on Amazon or Shopify and you decide to pay for this over 3 to 4 months, typically it could be a firm that's managing that for you. And they've been doing fairly well. So then I think they'll continue to do well through a sluggish consumer economy, especially when consumers are impacted by the price of goods going up, so inflation occurring, and not seeing their wages or salaries go up in line. They may have to finance purchases over an extended period of time. So that should benefit a firm. And then we've got Cloudflare, cybersecurity company. They've been doing very well this year, although they did pull back with the NASDAQ in general and all the tech stocks, but could be set up for a pretty positive quarter there. But we could see cutbacks there as well. So you never know where companies are making cutbacks, but I think Cloudflare is well positioned. And then DraftKings, the online sports betting firm, not one that I really track and follow, so I can't really comment on that. And then we get into Enbridge on the 9th, another energy company, and we'll have to see what's going on here because they could be impacted by tariffs with shipments to the US, and it could affect their bottom line. So that's where we are heading into the week. Wednesday is going to be the critical day. There will be other economic data coming out, but probably less material to what we're going to hear on Wednesday around rate cuts. And the big deal around rate cuts with Jerome Powell is clearly President Trump wants a rate decrease, and when he doesn't get it, it will be very interesting to see whether or not he loses it on Truth Social and really starts to go after and attack Jerome Powell. Because the last time we saw that, it led to a 2 to 3% decline in the markets on the Monday, and then once he announced that he was not going to pursue that activity, it rebounded and came back up that same amount the following day and continued to climb for the rest of the week. So turbulent times ahead. Be risk averse with your capital, and good luck in your trade.